I just ranted about the completely false idea that you can become completely fluent in English in only 7 days. But today, let's discuss how you can create a simple yet super effective 7-day study schedule in just 5 easy steps that you can easily implement into your weekly routine so that you can reach your goals of English fluency. Hello, and welcome to Cammie's English Corner. I'm Cammie, an American English teacher with over 10 years of experience teaching students from all around the world how to improve their English fluency and become more confident using English in their daily lives. So even though I'm obviously a teacher now, my educational background is actually in psychology and childhood development. Because of this background, I always try to implement these principles into my teaching methods. So my goal is to always teach in a way that is less stressful and is more intuitive so that it mimics the way that you learned your native language as a child. So if that sounds good to you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let's get into how you can easily integrate English practice into your daily routine. I will always fight against the idea that it's necessary to study for hours and hours a day to become fluent in English. Here's a few reasons why. 1, it's exhausting. You're going to end up making yourself so tired that you won't actually be able to process the information effectively. We all know that when we're too tired, we simply can't learn very well. So you'll end up wasting a whole bunch of time when you study, and then your brain is so tired that you lose all of that information. 2, it's simply not doable for most people. The majority of my students are between the ages of 15 and 45. So my high school students are quite busy preparing for their university entrance exams. My university students are busy with, university classes and probably preparing for graduate school entrance exams. And my adult students are busy with work or children. So how the hell are they supposed to fit in 2 to 3 hours of just English studying every single day? That's simply not achievable. It's impossible to find a healthy work-life balance when you're stuck at your desk studying all night long. 3, it's just not a sustainable method of studying, meaning that's not a routine that you'll be able to stick with for a long period of time. Let's think about studying a language like fitness and going to the gym. If when you first start your fitness journey, you go to the gym for 2 to 3 hours every single day and work out until you're dead tired, you're going to get burnt out after a few weeks or maximum a few months. Then what are you going to do? Well, you'll probably quit. And after a few weeks of being back home and sitting on the sofa scrolling TikTok for hours and hours a day, all of that progress that you made at the gym will be gone. It will all have been kind of a waste of time and money because gym memberships are not cheap. That same principle can apply to language learning. If you study for hours and hours a day, you're going to get burnt out. You're going to end up hating studying. So what'll you do? Quit. And then after a few months, again, scrolling on TikTok and ignoring all of those English study materials, all of that progress that you made will be gone. And you'll be right back to square one. So back to that fitness journey analogy, instead of busting your ass at the gym, it's more sustainable to maybe go to the gym for an hour or so, only a few days a week, and then just increasing your gentle activities like walking or maybe doing yoga on the days that you're not going to the gym. That's a routine that you can continue for the rest of your life. You can take a very similar approach to language learning. Instead of dedicating hours and hours a day to studying from textbooks or whatever, just implement some more passive English practice techniques and only have a few dedicated study sessions throughout the week that are maybe just an hour or so long. In fact, I've created a study session series for this specific purpose. In those videos that range from 40 minutes to a little over an hour, I've incorporated all areas of English so that you can study in a very comprehensive and effective way. And my fourth reason for why studying for hours and hours a day is not effective is because it's not fun. It sucks. Do you really want to punish yourself for hours and hours a day? No, you're going to end up hating English if you do that. By making yourself so unhappy with your English practice, you're going to create a lot of negative associations with the language. And if you think about it negatively, you won't want to continue your studying as a lifelong practice. And it will become more and more difficult to try and motivate yourself to study or to do anything associated with English. It's crucial to find a way to study that's at least somewhat enjoyable so that it'll make you want to study more frequently. Now let's jump into the 5 steps that you can take to create your perfect study routine. Step 1 is to figure out your personal learning style. Simply following your smart friend's study routine or whatever is going viral on social media might not be the most effective for you. For instance, the viral Pomodoro method, where you study for 15 minutes and then take a few minutes break and study for 15 and take a break, or whatever the timing breakdown was, that didn't work for me at all. Those 15 minutes of work time were both too long for my attention span and also too short for me to really get into the flow of my work. So even though it might have worked for millions of people around the world, it didn't work for me. In general, there are 3 different learning styles: auditory, visual, and tactile. And most people learn most effectively with one of those techniques or a combination of some of those techniques. I highly recommend trying out some kind of online learning style assessment to determine what your learning style is, and that way you can build an optimal study routine. So I tried out this assessment on educationplanner.org. I highly recommend it, and the results show that I am primarily a visual learner, meaning I can learn best when I see things. So I can learn more efficiently from watching videos, looking at diagrams, and writing down key words and concepts. And this quiz also showed me that I scored pretty low in the tactile and auditory learning styles. So something like a tactile role play to act out a scenario, or simply listening to instructions, is probably not going to be the most effective for my learning style. However, there are more factors that you need to keep in mind when building out that study routine. I also have ADHD, so I can't just rely on my learning style to figure out an optimal study routine. So because of my short attention span, I need to make sure that I find ways to keep myself mentally stimulated. And I have to make sure that my environment is free of distractions. But I also have anxiety, so I can't overwhelm myself with a really intensive routine because then I'll just get too anxious and quit before I even start. So while these learning style assessments are extremely useful for structuring your study routine, you do also need to keep in mind external factors like mental health or even just a busy schedule. So now that you've figured out your learning style, step 2 is to determine how much time you can realistically dedicate to practicing your English during the week. I've already posted a video on this topic, so make sure to check it out after you finish watching this one. Okay, so we have figured out our learning styles and how much time we can dedicate to studying. So, what can we do in step 3? Now you have to find the best ways for you to study and apply your English skills. Just reading a bunch of words and their definitions is not an effective way of studying vocabulary. Only using past tense to write about your day in a daily journal or diary is not going to help you practice your other grammar tenses. And only listening to a podcast or watching shows on Netflix is not going to help you with your speaking. You have to take a comprehensive approach to studying by combining multiple skills into each study session. By combining the skills, you're going to be able to save time and learn more effectively because you'll be able to adequately apply your knowledge. Let's take a look at a few ways that you can practice multiple English skills together so that you can practice in a time-efficient and effective way. So I'm going to use examples from the resource page in the free weekly study planner. Let's start out with the reading section. I gave multiple resources for awesome reading materials, but how can you combine reading with practicing other English skills? Well, for one, you can read these out loud, so then you're practicing your reading and speaking at the same time. You could also try joining a book club. So maybe you find a group of people online or in person that has similar reading interests as you. You'll periodically gather together to talk about your favorite books. So, reading and speaking. Or maybe you can choose a book from the reading list and download it as an audiobook so that you can listen and read it at the same time. You can also combine reading with your vocabulary section by picking out new vocabulary words from your reading and implementing those into your weekly vocabulary practice. And of course, you can check out how to effectively do that vocabulary practice by watching the 5-day study schedule or using the 5x5 vocabulary study guide. What about combining reading and writing? Well, if you want, you could write a summary of what you read. And while you're writing, you'll be practicing your grammar tenses as well. So now let's look at vocabulary. How can we combine that with some other skills? Well, with vocabulary and listening, I always recommend to my students to listen to how native English speakers pronounce the words. So in my 5-day schedule to master English vocabulary video, I provided a few different online resources for how you can listen to words in context. But of course, you can always Google how to pronounce a word. Along the lines of that, for your vocabulary and speaking, you need to practice the pronunciation of your new vocabulary words. So you'll need to speak them out loud, thus practicing speaking. And if you're taking private English lessons, you can tell your teacher about those words that you want to study, and they can find ways to integrate them into your lesson. Or at least that's what I do with my students. Along with practicing using your vocabulary in speaking, you should also try writing them in sentences with different grammar tenses. So there you go. You got vocabulary, grammar, and writing all in one. I actually used this kind of study method in my most recent study sessions video, so definitely go check that out. Now let's look at how we can comprehensively study grammar, because grammar is arguably one of the most boring things to study. You'll notice on this page that I only included 2 grammar resources. That's because I generally don't recommend to my students to dedicate too much time to practicing grammar on its own. I usually suggest that they practice it in a more comprehensive way and combine it with another skill. But if you do want a dedicated grammar practice, just check out one of those 6-minute grammar lessons, because you won't get too burnt out from boring grammar. I really mostly recommend maybe checking out the grammar explanations if you need help with a specific grammar question. So for combining your grammar with another skill, this is really best done with writing, because you can more slowly and carefully create various sentences with those different grammar structures. When I created my 365-day writing journey, I made sure to include all different kinds of questions that had various grammar requirements. You won't find only past tense questions or only present tense questions. There's a good mix of past, present, future tense, and all different ways for you to practice different kinds of grammar and sentence structures. So it's definitely a great resource to combine that grammar and writing practice. And heck, while you're at it, you can even try incorporating your 5 weekly vocabulary words so that, again, you can practice your writing, vocabulary, and grammar skills all in one. And finally, to combine your speaking and listening, this is pretty easily done with mirroring practice, where you listen and repeat, or just having a conversation with somebody, because of course you're listening to them and you have to speak to give them a reply. So there are tons of mirroring practice videos available online. You can even do this with just your favorite Netflix show. Listen, pause, repeat, listen, pause, repeat. And to practice having a conversation, you can either practice with friends or family members that are also trying to improve their English, or of course schedule a lesson with a private English tutor so that you can continue improving your speaking abilities. Let's move on to step 4. Now that you've figured out how to more academically study in a comprehensive way, let's discuss how you can implement a passive study routine so that you can easily incorporate more English into your daily life. While it's definitely useful and important to have some more dedicated study sessions, one of the best ways to improve your language abilities is to create a more immersive language experience. It's important to try and surround yourself with English in as many different ways as possible. I like to call this absorbing English, almost like our brains are sponges. This language immersion technique is similar to how you acquired your native language as a child. Did you read textbooks and study your native language when you were a baby? No, obviously not. You watched cartoons, read books, and listened to your parents and family members speak to naturally acquire your native language. And it's completely possible to do this with English too. Let's jump back to the study planner to look at some ways that you can create a more immersive experience to increase your English absorption. Let's start out with reading. Now, I understand that a lot of people don't enjoy reading very much, but please go watch at least the first part of my recent study session video where I give lots of tips and advice for how you can start to enjoy reading again. So once you figure out how you can find that joy in reading, just come up with a reading routine. One of the best times to read is at nighttime. We all know that it's not good for our quality of sleep to be scrolling on our phones right before we go to bed. So instead, read a book. Maybe during your lunchtime you can read your book, or check out the news, or even some celebrity gossip. It doesn't matter. Just read something. Even if it's only one paragraph a day, that's better than nothing. If you're really feeling too tired or unmotivated to pick up a book, then at least you can watch a show with some English subtitles. So not only will you get in your listening practice, you'll also practice a little bit of your reading as well. And if you're a parent or have young children in your family, definitely read them books in English out loud. Most children around the world have some kind of English lessons in their schools, so they're also needing to study English. So why not help them out with their English studying while also getting in your reading and speaking practice? It's mutually beneficial. Everyone wins. Now with the vocabulary, I've already made tons of videos for how you can practice that and implement it into your daily routine, so you can go check those out. For grammar, again, you can check out one of those little 6-minute lessons that's available on BBC, and because they're only 6 minutes, I'm sure you can find time to integrate them into your day. So just take away 6 minutes of TikTok and put in that grammar lesson. And don't tell me that you don't have 6 minutes that you spend on your phone. I know that you bring your phone into the bathroom. You can do a 6-minute grammar lesson during that time. And I'm definitely not judging you because everyone brings their phone into the bathroom. You don't need to feel ashamed about it. Jumping over to the listening section, for passive listening practice, try listening to a podcast or audiobook while you're doing another activity like cooking, cleaning, or, I don't know, taking your dogs for a walk. And you don't have to listen to something that's strictly English education related. Just listen to anything that you find interesting. You're still getting that listening practice. And if you enjoy it, then you're more likely to continue listening to it. And that's the most important part. You can also get that listening practice in by watching shows or YouTube videos. You have to listen to them, so it's English practice. And it's fun. Who doesn't love watching a series on Netflix or whatever YouTube video that's about your favorite hobby or topic? Now, you'll notice that I did not include listening to music as a specific recommendation. I have a pretty strong opinion against using music to practice and learn a language, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of angry comments about it, but just hear me out. While music is a fun way to absorb the language, it's not a very effective method for learning for a few different reasons. So you really need to keep in mind that music is poetry. Poetry is meant to sound beautiful. It's not meant to mimic daily conversation. So a lot of music will include vocabulary that's not frequently used. The grammar structures might technically be incorrect because there are no rules in poetry. And words are very frequently mispronounced in songs in order for them to fit the rhythm and rhyme in the music.
This is a shout out to my ex.
You've been running around, throwing that dirt all on my name. Me and the goats in the back room.
You keep making me weak, yeah, frozen and can't breathe. Where I go, and there's a lot of cool chicks out.
So, yes, you should still listen to some music in English because it will create some nice positive associations with English, but I don't consider it to be useful as a passive form of English studying. For speaking, I do always recommend trying to get private lessons with an English teacher so that you can get feedback and corrections in order to improve your speaking. But I understand that that's not financially feasible for many people. So instead, again, you can try to find a family or friend who's also trying to improve their English. Or maybe there's some kind of English club where you live and you can practice with a lot of other people. If you live in a country that does not use English as its native language, I can guarantee that there's a place where the native English speakers frequently gather and hang out. For instance, when I lived in South Korea, there were a few different neighborhoods and bars that a lot of us foreigners would go hang out at. And any local Koreans that wanted to practice their English, they would join us at the bar. So maybe look into those kinds of opportunities as well. But if you really can't find any way to practice speaking with other people, definitely try out that mirroring practice. And with writing, I know a lot of people don't think that it's an important skill because they can just use ChatGPT to write their emails for them. But writing is an excellent way to practice using your vocabulary and grammar. So just try to take a few minutes to write something down during the day, whether that's for your vocabulary practice, writing down a few sentences with the grammar that you're studying, or doing your daily entry in your My 365-day writing journey.
Do it! Just do it!
So we're finally on to step 5, and that is to just do it. Start today. You don't need to wait until Monday or next week or next month or until you have money to buy a textbook. No, you can start implementing these free practice resources today. It's okay if you have a really busy schedule and you can't devote a whole hour to studying, but if you're watching this video, That means that you do have about 30 minutes of free time. It's okay if you don't have time to do a full study session today, but you can read a book tonight before you go to sleep instead of scrolling on Instagram or TikTok. And don't give me the excuse that you can't afford a book, because I have provided so many different resources for how to download books for free. No excuses. You can watch another video after this that's in English to get in some more of your listening practice, and it doesn't even have to be educational, just in English. You can finally make that leap and schedule your first lesson with a private English teacher. Just do it. Do anything. I have given you all different kinds of resources and recommendations, most of which are free and accessible 24 hours a day. I know you can use these to create the perfect study routine that fits your busy schedule. So there you go. 5 simple steps to create your perfect 7-day study schedule. Remember, the goal is not to study as much as possible. It's more effective to take a gentler approach to studying so that you can remain consistent with your routine, thus turning English fluency into a lifelong skill. But if you'd like more personalized help reaching your English goals, definitely schedule a private lesson with me on Cami'sEnglishCorner.com, where I can help you improve your daily conversation, pronunciation, and I also do TOEFL preparation and writing corrections. And for more tips and tricks on how to effectively and efficiently improve your English, check out the playlist right over here. See you later.